Vanguard is buying Mara and Riot hand over fist right now. We're seeing basically all of these major institutions change their entire tune on the crypto sector. We're seeing a lot of investors dive headfirst into crypto stocks like Vanguard. And to give some more numbers behind this, so Vanguard currently owns 10% of Mara. And they actually increased their holdings by 59% just earlier this week. I repeat, that was just earlier this week. They increased their holdings by 59%. So they own over 10% of the stock. And we see BlackRock here actually owns 7.4% of the stock. And we don't know if they've added shares or not yet. We'll find that out once the 13F hits. But they own obviously 17% of the stock. So you're seeing almost, both of them combined own 17% of the stock. So this is huge. This is huge news. The fact that Vanguard just dip bought is gigantic news. And they didn't even really dip buy. They bought into strength, I should say, which even shows how much they don't want to miss this trend. And then the third largest holder is just a former CEO. He owns about 4% of shares. He's like super bullish in the crypto sector. I don't anticipate him selling. So you have basically 20% of the stock that is pretty much not going to be sold, which I see as very interesting and as a possible that gives the stock somewhat of a floor, right? When 20% of the shares are potentially locked up, and these two, BlackRock and Vanguard, are 13Gs, so they would have to let us know when they sell shares. So we would know that. Like, for example, Vanguard bought more shares, it brought them up to over 10%. Well, now they have to tell us if they're buying or selling. So awesome to see that institutions are jumping in and buying shares. But let's take a look at some analyst ratings for Marathon Digital here. So we see that in general, there are 8 buy ratings and 2 hold ratings for the stock at this current time. So we don't have a single analyst that has the stones to say that this stock is a sell, which in my opinion, is kind of a screaming buy and shows you the general consensus amongst Wall Street firms, and that consensus being buy. So we haven't seen a new update in the past 2 months, and this is likely because share price has been so volatile. So whenever Mara kind of cools out here and we see some sideways trading, expect a lot of these analysts to not even change their ratings, but change their price targets, right? Because let's take a look at B. Riley Securities. So they have an $8 price target on shares, right? But that makes no sense. You can't have a price target of $8 when the stock is trading at $20. That makes no sense. You're going to have to change that. So what they're going to do is they're going to raise their price target. It's, just simply this is what happens on Wall Street. So whenever you see a large move in a stock, you'll see a bunch of price targets move higher with that stock. People think price targets move shares. Well, it's really the other way around. Share price moves price targets, and then you could see this increase in price targets, really act as a bullish news event for shares. So I do think Mara has this bullish news trend in the holster, excuse me. So I do think the stock, we could see even more bullish analyst notes and raises of price targets over the coming weeks. When we take a look at Mara's chart, we can see some short-term resistance on shares. So at about 1880 is where shares had topped out in August of 2022. So we could be seeing some selling pressure around that level. But with that being said, I still think long-term shares obviously are going to be moving higher over the next couple months. I think we have very bullish momentum. So we had the 50-day moving average cross over the 200-day moving average in May, which for those that don't know signifies a bullish trend. It is the most widely watched daily moving average signal. So definitely a good sign to see that for shares. You know, that is also called a golden cross, and it's just very widely watched and is definitely seen as a very bullish signal for momentum. So with the backs of bullish momentum and obviously the institutional adoption that I went through earlier in the video, I think Mara continues to move higher over the coming weeks to months. But why I think we could see some sort of a pullback around this 1880 level is because obviously this resistance level, and we're overbought according to RSI. Currently, right now, RSI sits at about 89, and the last time RSI was this high was back in 2021. And back in 2020, shares moved lower, but then continue higher in 2021. And then obviously the 2021 drop, shares moved significantly lower. So this has been this signal, this read of overbought RSI has led to downside in the past and could lead to some consolidation, some selling pressure for shares. With that being said, I still think MARA continues higher. How much higher? Well, let's take a look at the chart and see if we can't give a solid prediction on that. So we can see a pretty clear resistance level at about 31 bucks, which is where shares had topped out in March of 2022. It's also where shares had topped out in early May of 2022. So you can see here, or excuse me, February and March. So February, we came up to this level, moved lower, came up to this level again in March, moved lower. And now if we were to come up and test this level once again at around 30 bucks, I think we would likely see some selling pressure around that. So I do think personally we could see a move from 20 bucks to 30 over the coming months. But like I said, I think we're kind of due for a short-term pullback. But honestly, that would be a very, very healthy development for the chart. It would really just be a healthy pullback within a larger uptrend. So if we saw a pullback, I would really just consider that, just a very, very healthy pullback within a stock that has been going absolutely parabolic here. I mean, we've jumped from $9 to 19 in, less than a month, which is absolutely insane. So awesome to see there. Really, I've been bullish on this stock for quite some time, so it's not very shocking at all. And then one thing I always like to cover is seasonality trends, and this tells me which months on average have the best returns for the stock. So July on average is the second best month in the stock's history. So it isn't shocking to see that shares are really rocketing higher. Obviously, we have the general sector bullish news, but it is good to see that the seasonality trends are in the favor of the bulls. And then even for next month in August, we do on average rise 9%. So seasonality wise, definitely on the bull side for sure. So with that being said, I'll jump into some financials for Mara. So the company doesn't make any money, obviously, but PE for the next 12 months is expected to be positive at 85 times PE, so that's not too shabby. And then when we take a look at price to cash flow is at 17 times for the next 12 months, and that is below the sector median and is definitely a very good number. So valuation overall doesn't look too shabby. And then when we take a look at growth, obviously Mara's valuation is high, but we do see growth numbers rationalizing that high valuation. So for the last 12 months, yes, revenue growth has dropped 41%, but revenue growth for the next 12 months, that is 55%. So well above the sector median there. Definitely a very good number at 55%. And then we see EBITDA growth, earnings before income taxes, depreciation, and amortization projected at 24% growth, which is definitely a solid number and well above the sector median. So anytime you have a company that doesn't make money, you always want to see high growth metrics kind of rationalizing that high valuation, because why would an investor ever pay up for a company that isn't profitable if it doesn't have high growth prospects, which would obviously help push the company into profitability. So awesome to see that there. Really do like to see growth metrics rationalizing higher valuations. And then when we take a look at profitability here, once this bad boy loads, I believe we're at 20%. Yep, so we're at 20%. Gross profit margin is at 20%. That basically just tells you that they're making 20% on every single thing that they sell or buy, um, or in this case, mine. So that gross profit is just revenue minus cost of goods sold. So 20% is a solid number. And then when we look at cash per share, so the company has 75 cents in cash per share, which is solid, but honestly, I don't love the cash relative to the company's debt, which I'll get into in a little bit, but overall profitability, not horrible. And then when we take a look at revisions, so we can see that analysts have been increasing their expectations for EPS and revenue for the stock over the past couple months. So over the past 3 months, we've seen one analyst increase their EPS expectations, and we've seen 4 different analysts increase their revenue expectations. So net, we're seeing Wall Street become more and more bullish on shares. So with that being said, I'll take a look at all these numbers compared to the peers. First off, let's take a peek at trading. Mara currently ranks second in terms of performance relative to the peers. We're seeing Riot really be the outperformer for the entire peer group. But generally, Mara is still performing pretty well throughout the peers, which, anytime you see outperformance relative to peers, it's likely you'll see a continuation of that trend, which is a good thing for Mara. And then, like I said, valuation numbers are pretty healthy for Mara over the next year. And then that is a stark contrast compared to Riot, Hut, Coin, and Bitfarms. So net, valuations are pretty solid for Riot. For Mara, when you compare it to Riot and others. And then when we take a look at price to book ratio is 5.17, and that is above Riot, Hut, Coin, and Bitfarms. So price to book ratio doesn't look great, to be honest, and that kind of plays into my general thesis that the company doesn't have much cash on its balance sheet, which could lead to the firm issuing some shares here. So revenue growth, like I said, for Mara looks pretty healthy over the next 12 months, beating all of the other peers for the next 12 months, although year-over-year revenue growth is pretty poor when you compare it to the peers. And then when we take a look at gross profit margin, so we're at 20% for Mara, which is about in line with the peers here, so no real huge takeaway from that. And then short interest is 24%, which is the highest amongst all peers. And then what I really wanted to cover for Mara is the fact that the company has $124 million in cash, but it has $734 million in debt. So net, the company has $609 million more of debt than they do cash. And given the company is investing heavily into growth, they're going to need to put that cash to work, and they're going to need more cash to fund their operations because the company doesn't make any money. Therefore, given the company needs more cash, they have really 2 options. So they could issue more debt, but given rates are so high, it doesn't really make sense for them to issue debt. Therefore, they're likely going to issue more equity, which a share offering for those that have been in the market for a little bit, you would know that isn't typically received positively by shareholders. So I'm of the view that over the next year or so, the company's going to issue more shares, which would obviously dilute the existing shareholders and would peeve off a lot of the existing shareholders. But that being said, this is very common for high growth stocks. So just because the company issues new shares doesn't mean that the company's dead. It just means that you need to be on the lookout for that, and don't be surprised if the company issues new shares over the coming months. And this cash position relative to debt is at a stark contrast when you compare it to Riot's cash of $150 million compared to their debt of $22 million. So Riot actually has $135 million more of cash than they do debt. So definitely 2 different balance sheet situations when you take a look at Mara and Riot, excuse me. So With that being said, I am still very bullish on Mara. We were bullish on this channel at 10 bucks. I'm continuing to be bullish as we see large investors such as Vanguard kind of dive headfirst into more crypto correlated stocks. So with that being said, I'm bullish to the stock, and I will end the video there. If you got some value from this video, please leave a like. We post company breakdowns and important market moving news on this channel on a daily basis, so make sure you are subscribed. If you would like to receive my daily portfolio moves, my exits, my entries, and see how me and my team of analysts are trading the markets, join the Discord through the link in the description below to get our free 7-day trial. Also, if you would like to join our free daily newsletter, sign up to our Substack, which is linked below as well. With that being said, good luck everyone. Happy trading, happy investing.